the Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. In episode 135, discover how trauma impacts the nervous system and learn to thrive after it with Cathy, Domoney.
I mean, these people are amazing people to have in your life, okay? And so you're looking for people who are able to shine a light on your blind spots, because you might be getting into a habit of behavior. You might be in a habit of self-sabotage. You might be in a habit of self-depreciation talk. Do you know what I mean? Where we're making fun of ourselves, or we're not accepting a compliment, or things like that. You know, we need to be able to be stepping into our power and doing those sorts of things. And also, what I'd like to highlight with that is the definition of trauma. So I've worked with extraordinary people on the top of their game, like 7-figure entrepreneurs, self-made, super confident, super intelligent, very accomplished. But what tends to happen is they've transmuted their challenges, distress, and pain into success. Okay, so they've channeled it in a really positive way, and they've set themselves these really huge goals, and they've gone for them, and they've achieved them. Then they hit that pinnacle of success, and then the euphoria starts to fade, and they think, oh, this wasn't quite the answer that I was looking for.
Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast, a space where stories of strength, resilience and transformation unfold. I'm your host, Sharlene Lynch, and I'm honoured to be your guide on this journey of empowerment and healing. Today, we've got a very special episode tailored just for you. Whether you're driving the car, sipping a cup of tea, or taking a moment to yourself, I want you to know that you're in a safe place. Healing Through Love is more than a podcast. It's a community, a beacon of hope, and a reminder that you are not alone. In this episode, we have a guest who will share a story that resonates at the core of our mission, a story that illuminates the power of love, resilience, and unwavering strength that lies within each and every one of us. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let the healing journey begin. But before we dive into today's inspiring narrative, a quick reminder that if you find value in our episodes, consider supporting us by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your engagement helps us reach the hearts and spread the message of healing at the speed of love. Today, we've got a very special guest with us today, and Cathy. So Cathy works with high performance leaders, professionals, and business owners, dissolving their blocks, their traumas, their triggers in only 3 sessions. Wow, that sounds miraculous. I love this. So let's dive in, Cathy, and find out a little bit more about why have you chosen this path? What happened to you for you to come to where you are now? What's your story?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. Next, I grew up in a family where I didn't feel like I really fitted in. And I felt that there was another place, another way to be. And I was very young, so I was the youngest by a decade. And I was observing from a very young age and thinking, this isn't how we're supposed to be in the world. I'm not sure how we are supposed to be, because this is my only point of reference right now, but I just feel intuitively that this isn't it. And so from a very young age, I went looking for answers. I read philosophy. I sought out teachers. I went for counseling very young because I was like, I just need to sort out what's going on inside me. I just don't feel like I fit in here. And so that was a really interesting start to me, and really got me looking for answers from a very young age. And so my lifelong quest has been really trying to work out what's going on inside of me. And that developed into a career, and it developed into a bit of an obsession. And so each time that I worked with somebody, I was wanting to get them to where they wanted to be quicker and more painlessly, because traditionally healing has been quite a laborious, expensive, long, drawn out, painful process. And so I wasn't really interested in that, not for myself and not for my clients. And so I've been fortunate enough to have a network of exceptional thought leaders. And so have been able to study under some of the greatest minds and used some of the most cutting edge techniques, which now I put together in certain ways to get deeper results faster. But really, the reason that I wanted my own trauma healed, because I didn't want to pass it down to my children.
I love it. That's powerful. I love the part that you're talking, so much in there to unpack, but I love particularly the part about you didn't feel like you belonged. And like, I don't know the name of it, but they're obviously, because this is a common thing. Like, I didn't think my parents were my parents. Like, in fact, we had gollywogs. I don't know. I don't think you're old enough to remember gollywogs.
No, I remember gollywogs.
So we had gollywogs in the wardrobe, and I was convinced the gollywogs were my parents and that these people were imposters and they weren't my parents. And when I speak to other people, they've got similar stories. So this must be a thing. It must be a part of growing up, this part of the level of awareness, this thinking that they're not your parents. Yeah. Is that true to be?
I think most healers that you come into contact with have had a unique experience, and of course divinely orchestrated, right? There's no accidents. We're all supposed to experience what we're experiencing, to channel us in a certain direction. And so my experience was ask questions, find answers. Don't just sit here passively. You feel intuitively that there's something else, trust your instincts and go out and find what that is. So I think if you speak to any healer, they're going to have a similar journey where we've been put in the exact right circumstances in order to push ourselves to grow and expand. And then in doing so, we want to spread that message, right? Because don't get me wrong, like being in the chrysalis is super painful and super messy, and we basically have to decompose before we become the butterfly. But as you go through it again and again and again, because each time you elevate in life, you're going to hit another barrier, another challenge, another process. But because you're in that routine of being dedicated to expansion and not being frightened to dig into the dark, right? Because sometimes there's stuff we don't understand, sometimes things come up, but it's the fear of dealing with it keeps you trapped. Leaning into it and dissolving it frees you. And so once you understand that concept, you're more likely to lean in. And don't get me wrong, like I would say that I'm a reasonably evolved soul. But I will have conversations with my colleagues and my friends where I'll be like, oh my God, I feel like I've really arrived. I feel like I completely connected to the divine. I feel like I really am in tune with myself. I feel that I am aligned. I've dissolved so much stuff. I feel really elevated right now. I feel like really high vibe. And like 2 weeks later, I'm crying going, oh my God, this is so painful. I feel so lost right now. What the hell is going on? Why do I keep choosing this path? But when you get comfortable with doing that dance, then it doesn't grip you for a long time. You know that it's a process. You know that what's on the other side of it is going to be so rewarding and so bright and so light and so worth it that you just lean in and lean in and lean in. And so that would be my passionate message to people is when we're hiding from the stuff that's holding us back, it keeps us imprisoned in where we are. If we lean in with curiosity, love, self-appreciation, gentleness to self, and by the way, by cultivating that in ourselves, we're able to show that to others as well, which is really important for their journeys, because everybody's on a journey. And so when we are able to do that, it becomes less dark. Because when you're in the chrysalis, little blinks of light comes through. You know that this is going to be temporary. You know what's on the other side is worth it. And so, lean in, do the work, find the right person for you, and expand, dissolve what's no longer working for you.
I love it. I wish that it didn't all have to happen in one day. It'd be nice if there was a cycle that would go from feeling amazing to, oh my God, and happen in a space of 24 hours. That makes me laugh. I identify that with 100%. I can be on top of the mountain thinking, oh my God, I think I can fly. And then like smack, something happens. And and it doesn't matter. It's not about being evolved. I think it's about being the journey. I think this is all part of the journey. So much in what you've said again to unpack. Yes, and for our listeners here today, we're talking about trauma. Yes, and you might not identify as having trauma. You it might not be the words that you use, but let's talk about what are the symptoms that you might be experiencing. And this is the challenge: if it's not annoying you enough, you're not going to move. And so that's the challenge. So let's have a talk about the things that might appear that will lead us to understand that it is trauma that we're having. So like burnout, those sorts of things.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a great believer that physical symptoms have an emotional core. And so if we're experiencing physical symptoms, stomach things, panic attacks, anxiety, some sort of PTSD, self-sabotage, right, that comes into like the negative inner dialogue, anything like that, there's something not quite firing there. Do you know what I mean? There's something not quite right. And it's amazing what we can adapt to living with. And so that is a key element there, is to either be able to radically self-reflect on your own experience and go, okay, there's something misfiring here. There's something not in alignment for me here. What is it? Or have trusted what I call lighthouses in your life, right? That are able to shine a light on your blind spots. People who you trust, people who love you, people who really want the best, not the best for you because it suits their needs, right? There's a definition there. There's a distinction. Someone who wants the best for you despite their own needs. So someone who's going to tell you the truth, someone who wants you to elevate, even if it means that you outgrow them. I mean, these people are amazing people to have in your life, okay? And so you're looking for people who are able to shine a light on your blind spots, because you might be getting into a habit of behavior. You might be in a habit of self-sabotage. You might be in a habit of self-depreciation talk. Do you know what I mean? Where we're making fun of ourselves, or we're not accepting a compliment, or things like that. You know, we need to be able to be stepping into our power and doing those sorts of things. And also what I'd like to highlight with that is the definition of trauma. So I've worked with extraordinary people on the top of their game, like 7-figure entrepreneurs, self-made, super confident, super intelligent, very accomplished. But what tends to happen is they've transmuted their challenges, distress, and pain into success. Okay, so they've channeled it in a really positive way, and they've set themselves these really huge goals, and they've gone for them, and they've achieved them. Then they hit that pinnacle of success, and then the euphoria starts to fade, and they think, oh, this wasn't quite the answer that I was looking for. And actually, these feelings have caught up with me, and what was working for me before isn't working for me now. Or maybe there's a fracture in my romantic relationship, or maybe there's a fracture in the relationship with my kids or my colleagues or whatever, and I can't quite put my finger on why. And so that's when they come to me. So I generally have built my business through referrals. The first conversation, they'll say, I've just released a film, I've just done a TED talk, life's fantastic, I've just hit this financial threshold, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's awesome. May I ask, why did you book in to see me? And then, of course, that's when, well, there's just this one thing. You know, and what blows my mind is I've worked with people who have had horror stories of lifetime of through their life, you know, from the birth upwards. Some of the people I've worked with can't remember before the age of 12. Okay. But what's really, really interesting to me, and what's really educated me in supporting people through resolving their trauma, is trauma isn't the incident itself, it's how we've received the incident. Okay, so it can't be quantified. There's no logic to it. It can't be compared to anybody else, because I've worked with a client who had just a catalogue of what I would call deeply distressing, disturbing events in their lives. But when we leant in and I asked what was the most distressing memory of their experience, they said being humiliated in front of their year 5 class by their teacher.
Wow.
So for me, from the outside looking in, I thought, wow, I would not have chosen that from that list. But that was the most distressing memory of their childhood. And so I think a lot of people, particularly women, not exclusively women, but particularly women, downplay what they've been through to survive it. And some of the people that I've worked with who have survived just a catalogue of incredibly distressing events will say to me, well, I had a pretty good childhood. I can't really complain. You know, I had it really good in so many ways. And that's a survival mechanism. But the fact of the matter is, when we've got these things unresolved within us, we may be living, we may be surviving, but perhaps we're not thriving to the fullest of our potential. And I like to see people sparkle because they deserve it.
I love it. I love it. You know, as a woman who survived post-traumatic and now I'm in post-traumatic growth, the one strategy that works for one aspect, so I'm a recovered hoarder, doesn't work for the same strategy. I'm a recovered alcoholic, doesn't work for that. For domestic violence, the strategies I've used there to move and shift don't work for overcoming the fear of speaking publicly. Like, just because you've overcome one thing in your life does not mean that you can use that same skill set across other things. And this is what makes you very unique, Cathy, is that you're an investigator by like, you were born an investigator and you've got this innate level of curiosity to ask the questions that even nobody's asking. And you've come up with this very unique, very individual and a proven formula that helps unpack these neural pathways that we've created and redesign them so that you've got tools and techniques that they can use so they can move forward on all of the aspects of their life. I love it. I love it. Tell us a little bit more about this beautiful pathway that you talk about, this beautiful formula, the proven formula that you use.
So there's a lot of different things. I am qualified in a lot of different things. So there's some psychology, there's some counseling, there's some hypnosis, TRTP, the Richards trauma process. Judith Richards is an incredible person leading the way in healing trauma. Colette Schreiker, who also has developed this process called MAP, where we play with the superconscious, and we ask the superconscious. We basically give instructions to your brain in order to identify all of the events in your life that have triggered this particular reaction, and we're able to dissolve it en masse in that way. So, and there's all sorts of NLP, there's all sorts of different things that I've studied over the years, which I bring to each session. So there's no session that's the same for any client, because, for example, I have been working with a client who I started with one particular modality, which really suited her for the first session. We got to the second session and I said, "How have you been?" And normally after the first session, clients go, "Oh, I felt so calm. I felt so centered. I felt so peaceful. I felt so loved." And she said, "I have felt the most stressed and anxious that I have ever been in my life." And I was like, "Oh my God, like, what is going on?" Because that is not the results that I normally get. But when I asked a few more questions, she was facing a massive life choice, which included a huge medical procedure, and she had to make the decision, like, within the next 10 days whether she went ahead with that or whether she didn't go ahead with that. And I was like, yeah, that will cause that kind of level of anxiety and stress. But I was able to say to her, "Hey, what we had planned for today is not going to work. With your permission, if you give me 10 minutes, I'm going to completely rescaffold your whole session, and I'm going to get you to a place where you can hear your voice clearly and you can make this decision confidently. I don't know what that decision is going to be, but I can get you to a place where you know what it's going to be and you can be really confident making it." And so being qualified in so many different things is such a blessing, because you can pull different things out of the toolbox whenever you need to. So there's no one size fits all. And I would suggest I'm not the right person to help everybody. Some people like my British accent. Some people like my crazy pom hair. Some people don't. You know, I will repel some people. But I would say to you, please do not be repelled from the healing. Find the right person to work through this with you, you know. And I'd also say, please find someone who's qualified, because I've had quite a few people come through to me, these professional people who have been traumatized by their coach. So don't just look at the website. Don't just look at the qualifications. Look at where they're registered, where they've had to prove their experience. They've had to prove their qualifications. Don't put your life in someone's hands unless you are super sure that they've got you and you're safe.
Absolutely. I love this. I love this. I love this. Now, on your website, you've got lots of resources, but one of them is in and around the burnout. So can you talk a little bit about that particular resource?
Sure. Well, on the website, there's some self-assessment tools, there's some quizzes, there's some little presentations, because a lot of folks have been so focused on building out their professional careers, they haven't had a lot of time to investigate this stuff. So it's really a starting point to start doing a little bit of self-reflection, questioning ourselves, doing a bit of a self-audit, going, where am I actually? How am I doing? Because when we're doing qualifications, we're doing trainings, we're leading teams, we're managing companies, we're doing all these things, and there's very little time left for us. I mean, I was speaking to a business leader at a conference not long ago, and they said, every training I go to is telling me how to look after my staff with this mental well-being. What about me? And I'm like, totally. That's exactly who I work with, are the people at the top of the tree who are holding all of the things together. But where are the resources and the supports for the people at the top? And without the people at the top thriving, everything else falls down, because it's top heavy, right? So I was seeing a business owner last year, and they invited me to a social event at their company. And I looked around at what was happening, and I said to my husband, this company will not be here in 6 months' time. Because the ecosystem, the interrelations between the staff were so fractured and so volatile. I just said, they're not going to be here. Certainly not going to be here this time next year. And within 6 months, they folded, because the leadership did not have the inner recalibration to lead that team. They had their trauma, which they were spewing out onto all of their staff. And that's not long-term sustainable. You really need to make sure you're leading from a super clean, elevated, centered space.
Yes, it's like it's like staying in a domestically violent relationship. We know we need to get out, but we don't, we stay. It's like when you're working in a toxic environment, it could be your finances are keeping you working in this space until something becomes evident that you need to move forward. I love everything that you've talked about here. And I think that it sounds like it starts with a level of awareness. And the challenge that I see from many people is they're a little numb to the things, like you've said, that are the problems. And there's, it's always been that way. It's like they're just carrying around these chains of everything with balls at the end of them. And they just keep moving with all of these heavy burdens because they've always done it. And I'm here, I've got here, I'm doing fine, but they're still carrying them around. But I noticed that one thing comes up and it's their undoing. And if it's not a relationship with somebody else or something that's come up and they can't really articulate what the problem is, it eventually gets to the point where it's health related. Like they're confronted, they're blindsided by a health issue that, well, where did that come from? Well, it's been there all the time. It's been manifesting quietly in the background because you haven't been taking care of the things that are right in front of you that we just don't see. I'm speaking we because I'm in that ballpark as well. I love it. But, these resources that you've got help people see the blind spots. They help them see and take off that top layer, peel back the scab, basically, and have a look at what's sitting underneath and give us that opportunity to ask more questions. So now when people work with you, Cathy, they work with you for like you're a boat across the river, not a boat down the river. It's like 3 sessions and you're fixed. Is that how it works?
I mean, fixed is a problematic term. So we're going to highlight that right from the start. So the first 3 sessions, that's a core foundational piece, and that's the TRTP that Judith Richards has developed. And that's a very, very powerful process. Doesn't suit everybody, but that's basically the cornerstone of the work, because what you can do is clear a lot of big T stuff, so that big trauma, or a catalog of little t, right? It has the same effect on our nervous systems, that little t's trauma. So it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? So we have it over a long period of time, it's going to have the same sort of effect to us. And so that will clear a lot. And like, I really go deep dive with my clients. So for example, I had a session 2 with a client yesterday. It was 3.5 hours long. Now, I know not all of the practitioners do that, and they're not believers in it, and I totally respect and honor that. But for me, when I'm with a client, number one, we're the only 2 people in the world, and number 2, I'm not going to get 2 hours in and go, well, we've just opened a can of worms. I hope you enjoy that for the next week, because time's up. Do you know what I mean? It's not how I roll. So I make sure that each client has as much time as they need. And like those sessions are very, very powerful, very, very deep. And so it's not unusual to go for 3.5 hours in those sessions, but we clear so much so quickly and we go very, very deep. And, you know, Colette Stryker, who's made this incredible map process where you can give instructions to the brain. This is an exciting time to be clearing this stuff because I think people have been resistant to going and getting this sort of emotional based trauma or distress or the physical symptoms that are coming from that. They don't want to dig into it because they don't want to have to be re-traumatized. They don't want to be in pain. They don't want to uncover stuff that maybe their brain has shut down for a reason. But as I said, with these cutting edge processes, I personally have worked with clients who cannot remember before the age of 12. And they've said, what are we going to uncover? I said, we're not going to go there. Your brain has shut that down for a reason. We're not going to go digging around there. I know from your patterns of behavior what your unconscious programming is doing, and because of what you're doing in your life, because of the decisions and because of the situations that you're finding yourself in. So we can dissolve that based on what's happening in your life now. We don't need to dig around in things that you've shut down for a reason. And so you're living in a time that's really exciting because you've got tapping, you've got all of these different things, but you've also got tapping's really, really great for working through triggers and recalibrating your nervous system. But these cutting edge techniques that I'm talking about is going to the core and dissolving it from there. So you're reprogramming your GPS. Right? You're not just thinking you're going to one destination, end up in the other destination going, this isn't where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in Hawaii. Why am I here? You know, but because what you're doing is going to the actual core of where it's all stored and you're reprogramming it from there, which is very exciting stuff.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm a big lover of tapping. I still use it for the strangest things. So for me, I like it because I can look, otherwise, as a recovered alcoholic and other addictions, is that I would have a tendency to go back to what I know. So having something like tapping for me is a great thing to have in the handbag that I can use if I feel something not coming on and there's no one else around to sort it out. There's no therapist to be seen, and maybe you're in an airport about to board and something's going on for you. So I love still those little tools and techniques that you can use because you just never know when the stuff's going to happen.
Absolutely.
As you said, it starts great at the beginning of the day, you're on top of the mountain, and then by the end of the day, oh my God, what happened? And I think it's the human experience. And I think that when you've got that heightened level of awareness, you're going to notice more stuff coming up. Yeah. And I love it. I love it. Wow. I reckon I could talk to you all day, Cathy. And I love your accent. I think it's fabulous. And I love your hair. I'm a curly girl myself, and I think it's fabulous to be all fluffy. Not so good in the humid weather, I've noticed, but you don't get any humid weather in the UK. But come to Bali and whoo, the hair just goes everywhere. I love it. So, Cathy, just in closing, I'd love you to share with our audience your closing words, your words of wisdom to help them move from where they are to where they want to be.
My biggest message to all of my clients and everyone listening is to be kind to yourself. Now, I know that's a bit cliche, but we tend to be very hard on ourselves. We're beautiful and kind and loving to each other, but tend to not be so for ourselves. But here's the thing. If you've got stuff stuck in your system, if you've got events stuck in your psyche, those events are still attached to the parts of you that experienced them. So if I experienced a traumatic experience at age 5, the part of me who's continuing to experience that is 5. I cannot put my adult logic onto my 5-year-old self. It's not doable. And so if you have problem or challenge in being kind and loving to yourself, get a photograph of yourself when you're 5, 6, 3, it doesn't matter. And imagine that part of yourself struggling with whatever it is you're struggling with, and send love and caring and support and everything that you possibly can that's positive to that beautiful young part of you, because those are the parts that step forward when we're in fear, when we're in crisis, when we're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Those are the parts that chose to learn to cope with things in the way that they could at the age that they were. Right? There's a beautiful. I did a talk to the women's health thing a few months ago, and one of the slides that I used on that was, it's a beautiful sculpture, and it's like a see-through wire sculpture of two adults with their backs to back, and they're facing away from each other, but inside are two child figures reaching out to each other, and they're illuminated. And I just thought, if we could see ourselves like that and each other like that, and respond from that place of love and understanding and nurturing and support, gosh, how much easier our journeys would be, and how much more we'd be able to lean into that healing. So when you're struggling to find that self-love, that self-care, imagine that younger version of you, that child version of you, because they're still there, right? They're still active. And part of what I do is allow them to rest and assure them that the adult you has now got them. They're safe. It's okay. And they can rest. They don't go anywhere. They don't die. They just rest. They don't need to be on high alert anymore. So imagine that younger version of you and send that version of you love, because it all ends up the same way. But it's really important that we show up for ourselves first, so that then we can show up for other people.
Oh, I love that. Be kind to yourself. If we could just be kind to ourselves, and obviously to others as well, it would be a different world. I love this, such a beautiful conversation. If you're listening today and you're a survivor of family and or domestic violence, reach out to Healing Through Love. We have pamper days, think day spa on steroids, where you come along and we have hairdressers and makeup artists, we have physical therapists, we have kinesiologists, we also have massage and everything you can imagine. We have 25 different practitioners holding the space for you, and it's free. And we have these beautiful pamper days all around Australia. And now, as of 2023, we're global. So we have them in a community near you. So reach out to Healing Through Love, and we'd love to point you in the right direction of a pamper day coming up close to you. If you're listening today and you are a practitioner and you've got a heart for change, and you want to hold the space for someone to heal, please reach out to Healing Through Love, and we'll connect you to an organizer in your community. Cathy, this has been a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. I'm very excited. All of her resources available on her website. The link is in the show notes and also in the show description. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to hold this space today. It's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Cathy. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.